we're not changing the plans now. I've already solidified these. These are already in stone. This is the only piece of classic literature, I believe, that has a character who spontaneously converse. That was what I learned in my research about this novel. I have no clue what that means. We're finishing all of Charles Dickens. I want the distinction of being able to say I have read all of Charles Dickens. Hello! That was really obnoxious and bright, but hello! And welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley, and today we're going to be discussing all of the books I want to read. Not all the books I want to read. All the classics I want to read in 2023. This is a thing I've done for the last 2 years, where I sit down and I list all of the books that I want to read, all of the classic books that I want to read for the year, and then proceed to ignore everything that I list out. So we're going to try and do something just a tad bit different this year. I am trying to hold myself a bit more accountable and be a little bit more realistic, because the last couple years I've read, so I've done this 3 years now? 2 years? I don't know, 2 years. But it's been about 10 to 12 books that I have finished, 10 to 12 classic pieces of literature. So to sit down and list 24 classic pieces of literature that I'm going to read is just not realistic. It's too much. So we're going to kind of make that list a little bit smaller. And we're also going to do it based on quarter, because I am a mood reader, and sitting at the beginning of the year, all the books that interest me in January are not the books that interest me in May or in September or in December. So we're going to do this based on a quarter, because I'm usually pretty good about figuring out what is going to interest me over the next month or two, or sometimes three. So we're going to do this based on quarter. Now, the only exception I'm going to make to this is that I still want to continue to read Charles Dickens in chronological order. They are ending the Dickens versus Tolstoy readathon. I still never even bothered to learn the correct name. It's been 2 years. Who knows? And I'm really sad that it's ending. But I think I'm going to finish reading Charles Dickens chronologically, because I'm now getting to the point where I actually like his works, and I'd be ashamed to kind of just stop now. So I'm going to continue with that. So I will be reading 4 Charles Dickens books this year, and I'm going to do it 1 per season, unless I want to just go crazy and just read Charles Dickens for the rest of the year, which I have considered. Don't think I want to do. I don't. I can only handle so much Charles Dickens. Although maybe that will change. We're not changing the plans now. I've already solidified these. These are already in stone. So for the first quarter, I'm going to be reading David Copperfield, which Charles Dickens said was, out of all the novels he'd written, was his favorite. So I'm really interested in that. I did pick it up and glance through the first chapter, and this is written in first person, which I'm very excited for. I'm most at home in YA. And so to find the fact that Charles Dickens wrote something in first person, it's going to be so much easier to read. It's going to be so much easier to read, just like Jane Eyre is so much easier to read simply because it's in first person. And then for the second quarter, which will start in April, I'm going to read Bleahouse by Charles Dickens. This is the only piece of classic literature, I believe, that has a character who spontaneously converse. That was what I learned in my research about this novel. I have no clue what that means. None whatsoever, but I'm all about that. This book is also massive. It's over 900 pages. So that'll be a fun time. That'll be a fun time. And then starting in, quarter 3, which will be July, I'm going to be looking at Hard Times. This is Charles Dickens. It's a little political, I believe. It's on utilitarianism, which I don't know what that is, so we're going to learn all about that. And then at the beginning of October, we will be doing Little Dorrit by Charles Dickens. And this one is very interesting because he based it on the prison where his father spent 3 months in debtor's prison. So it's semi-autobiographical in that sense. So I'm very interested to see what Charles Dickens has to say on that subject. I don't know. I think it's very interesting how much of himself Charles Dickens put into his work. And I've heard that David Copperfield is his most autobiographical novel, along with his most favorite novel. So I'm very interested. I don't know. I'm so interested in his life, but I don't know that I need to necessarily read all the novels about him. We're finishing all of Charles Dickens. I want the distinction of being able to say I have read all of Charles Dickens. And at some point, I'm going to have to read the Pickwick Papers, because I did not read that. So his very first novel. And I should probably do that before I get to the end, because if I read his last book, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and then try and go back to the first novel, I think I'm going to really struggle. but I just dread it. I dread it so much. I hated Oliver Twist so much. And the Pickwick Papers is going to be Oliver Twist, but beforehand. So the writing might even be worse than Oliver Twist. I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe I'm being too hard on myself. Or too hard on Dickens. No, I'm not going to enjoy that experience. So, and I don't think I'm going to buy the book either. I'm just going to listen to it. Which is not, I don't know if that's a good attitude to have. We'll take the year to consider it and figure that out for next year. Anyway, so those are the 4 classic literature. So that's 4 on my list of 10 to 12. 4 of them are going to be Charles Dickens. So for this quarter specifically, which will be from January to the end of March, here's the plan. So we already said David Copperfield. I'm going to finish Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. And then I'm going to finish The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, book 1. That's it. It's so sad and lonely. Just 3 books. Okay, there is also the potential, if I'm feeling a little bit crazy, here's the bonus list, the extras that I might be in the mood for. We have The Two Towers, so the second book in the Lord of the Rings series. I doubt that I will make it through all of Lord of the Rings, but I could see a scenario where that happens. And I'm totally fine with that scenario. And then The Epic of Gilgamesh. And I'm not going to talk about The Epic of Gilgamesh because I get on here every year and I say I'm going to read this book, and then I don't. So I don't want to curse it. So, okay. So for Les Miserables, where am I? Look at this chunk. I am on page 400, and there are 1,194 pages. So I need to finish this in the next 4 weeks for my book club. So the goal has been to read 25 pages a day, which has been going really great up until this week, the holiday week. It is currently New Year's Eve as I film this, and it's not been a great week for reading, unfortunately for me. But if you don't know anything about Les Miserables, this follows the story of a convict named Jean Valjean, and he gets released from prison, and he has to figure out how to lose the reputation of being a criminal and become a changed man. It's all about the concept of, can you really change human nature? Does human nature really change? What does it take to change? Which is a subject that I find super fascinating. I'm 400 pages into this. I adore this novel up to this point. And even if my book club hadn't picked to read this one this month, I still probably would have read a chapter a day, because this is a book that has 365 chapters. So if you read a chapter a day, then you'll finish this over the course of a year, which I think I would really like to do that sometime in the future. I think this would be a really good book to read slowly like that. But alas, we're not. So finishing that one up. And then we have David Copperfield. I don't know a whole lot about this story except that it features an evil stepfather instead of an evil stepmother. And I don't know that I've read a whole ton of books about an evil stepfather. So I'm very curious because David gets sent away to boarding school. And then he's trying to figure out how to be a grown-up and how to make his way in the world and how to find friends. And I'm sure he discovers a fortune, because that's the tendency for Charles Dickens, is his characters discover fortune. Now, for the Fellowship of the Rings. I just made it to Rivendell, which is about half the book. It takes like 30 minutes in the movie, max, and it takes half the first book. But this book is a series I don't think I was old enough for until recently. I've read this. This is my 3rd time through, guys, and I have never liked it until now. I've been watching the extended version, the movies, with my friends, and I loved the movies so much that I picked up the books again, and I have finally read enough classics. I finally read enough classic literature that I understand what Tolkien is saying, A, and B, I adore this story. There is so much here that I love and adore, and I'm taking it very, very slowly. I've been working on this for like a month and a half, and it's definitely a happy place. So I don't know, I'm loving finding a new favorite novel. So I'm not going to take this any faster than I am. I did pick out the audiobook and I listened to it and then realized that I wasn't going to have as enjoyable of an experience. So then I stopped. But if the whole series continues to be as lovely as the first half of The Fellowship of the Ring has been, this is definitely going to be a new favorite of mine. And then, if the fates and the stars all align, I'll probably pick up Moby Dick. I don't know about Moby Dick. I I don't know why I want to be in this world. I've already read Moby Dick before, but I was 18 and I listened to it on audiobook. And it was one of the few classics that I listened to that I just adored. And I remember really, really loving. So I think I would love it even more this time around. I know a lot of people get really frustrated with Moby Dick because it's a lot of whale anatomy. So I think I'd be really curious to know what my thoughts are this time around. But this is also a really big novel again, and I'm already doing David Copperfield and Les Miserables. So the chances of me actually picking up Moby Dick will probably have to wait until March. And that's probably okay. But I may not be interested in March in picking up Moby Dick. So I guess we'll find out and we'll see. So we'll be back in March to go over a review of these 5 books that I've listed here. Well, technically it's only 3, but I know for sure I can finish these 3 books. And then we'll look at our extras list, and then we will go over the books that I intend to read for the quarter 2, which are a mystery right now because I'm going to do it based on what I feel like. And yes, we'll get there when we get there. So I will talk with you all about this specific subject in March.